Thank you for checking in. This is Justin Duarte from Next Level Catching Academy. For those that might be newer, we have been serving the catching community here in Southern California for over a decade now. And I have been serving as an assistant coach or a head coach, both at the college and at the high school levels for over 15 years. And so we want to bring just a small series of mini episodes to help equip coaches and to empower them to develop their catching staffs. We know and understand that winning and competing at a championship level is almost impossible when you only have average catching behind the plate. All right, in this segment, we're going to talk about the benefits of having a good system of communication with our catchers. And what we're talking about here is we're talking about those mid-inning pieces of communication that are valuable, that allow coaches to save some of their mound visits, right, and avoid slowing the game down. Okay, so here's what we have. We've got benefit number one. We get to give and receive information, and it goes both ways. And the better you do this as a coach, the better you increase your catcher's awareness, because as you're asking for information, right, it's taking his awareness to certain parts of the game as he sees it. Okay, so benefit number one, give and receive information. Benefit number two, increase your catcher's awareness. That goes a long way in terms of helping him learn to manage the game. We get a lot of questions on how do I teach my catcher how to manage the game. Well, this is one of them, just opening up that awareness for him. And then the last benefit is going to be that catcher ownership. If he's giving you information, it needs to be usable, right? It needs to have an impact. It does us no good if he gives us unusable or bad information. Okay, so it increases his ownership because he's directly involved with some of that. I don't want to say decision making, but let's make him feel like he's a part of that. Okay, ultimately, coach has got to make the decision, and it's got to come from a place of conviction, and we want the catchers to feel that as well. Okay, so area number one of communication is our hitter comms. Now, this is for our opposing hitters. As coaches from the dugout, most of the time we can see if a guy is up in the box, back in the box. We can also tell how much he's on the plate or off the plate. But sometimes against those better hitters, they make adjustments quicker. Sometimes they start leaning over the plate. Sometimes they start to leak open a little bit, maybe with that front side. It could be from at bat to at bat they can adjust, or situation to situation. That information for us as we're calling pitches is very, very helpful. This is also great as you're teaching catchers to call their own game, for them to see these small movements within those hitters. And again, the better hitters will adjust. They won't just attack balls the same every single pitch or every single at bat. So that communication is important. Okay. The next area of communication that is important is going to be your battery communication. So within this is going to be, how can you communicate to your catcher that it's a good time to take a trip, and then how to approach that trip to the mound with his pitcher. Maybe you don't want to take one at that point, but he can go out and settle him. He can go out and maybe light a fire under him a little bit. So if you have a quick, succinct way to tell the catcher to go out there and a purpose for it, that's going to be helpful, right? The catcher may need to give you information in these battery comms, and just in terms of the pitcher's command, which oftentimes it's pretty easy to know when your pitcher's maybe missing a little bit more, but maybe it gets harder when he's still effective in getting outs. Or maybe it's just the shape of pitches. He's just losing a little bit of that bite or sharpness, and that catcher's got that perfect perspective to be able to see and relay that to him. Again, from coach to catchers, you may need to let him know, hey, someone's in on us from somewhere. We got to change up our signs. Maybe it's a guy at second. Maybe it's the coaches down the line. We have to switch up the way we're giving our signs, and not only from catcher to the pitcher, but also from coach to the catcher as well. Okay, and then leadership kind of comes into this battery comes as well, right? Maybe your catcher is just not bringing enough, or maybe he's bringing too much and the game's flowing really well, but we got to just kind of taper him off a little bit, just kind of soften that edge. If your defense is doing a good job, if your middle infielder's in the game and the pace of the game is going pretty well, some guys will get a little bit over eager, and it's easier to kind of to pull the reins back on a guy. It's usually harder for you to light a fire under the catcher as well. Okay, and then the last area of communication is going to be regarding the umpire. And again, we're not talking up and down, we're talking side to side. We're talking, how is the strike zone changing? Has it changed from the beginning of the inning to the middle, or if the inning's getting longer? And again, this is harder to decipher as a coach from the dugout when your catcher is a good receiver, because he's going to make the strike zone look wider on both sides. And so a nice subtle form of, again, nonverbal communication here is key, right? Some of the other areas, your hitter comms or your battery comms, some of those methods of communication, your mannerisms, maybe you're pointing down, maybe you're pointing at each other. Okay, whatever you choose to do, letters, numbers, short terms, those ones don't have to be as subtle, but the one regarding our umpires has to be subtle, because that umpire behind the plate is going to have a partner out on the bases, and we want to make sure that we're not jeopardizing that rapport between the catcher and the umpire. Okay, so let's make that very, very subtle. Some kind of a hand closure, open hand on the palm on the thigh, something very, very quiet, so that you can then approach that umpire the proper way without overly being aggressive on them, when really the pitch is on the plate. Your catcher's just doing a good job. So thank you for listening in. Feel free to share this with your coaching colleagues. If you love some more resources, we do have an online catching curriculum for coaches at nextlevelcatchingacademy.com. We have a special tab just for coaches. Let's press on. Let's help develop those catchers and compete at the highest level possible. Take care, guys.